Welcome to all of you. We really appreciate you taking the time to join this session. We want to share some information with you about any changes on our applications and applying. And we try to make that as straightforward as possible for you because we know that you are really our connection to meeting community need. And you have the ideas, right? And so what our job is really to figure out how to get the work done with you. And you can help us do that by making the best case. So through this application process. So with that, I'll move along. In case folks don't know me, I am Sue Peters. I'm the Vice President of Community Impact at the Community Foundation of Greater Flint. And what that means is I'm on the side of our organization that makes grants. We do a lot more than that. We also do community leadership, which can be anything from convening to providing data to helping get cross-sector partnerships started, things like that. I'm just going to give you an overview of our work and then introduce you to the amazing team that we have here. I tell you, we are fortunate. These folks that you're going to meet are here to help you and are the most committed folks that I have seen to the community. So excited for you to hear from them. But let me go over our grant making session goals. First of all, like I said, I want to share an overview of our work and the work of the Community Foundation. We are a little bit different than a typical private foundation, so we'll talk about that. Also share an overview of what our grant making process is and what it looks like for next year in 2025. We wanted to get you a little bit earlier this year. We usually do this in maybe in January, so we scheduled this earlier this year. And then we want to give you some tools, some tips, some tricks for how to apply. Again, we try not to make it super, it's not supposed to be a trick question or anything like that. So, but then we do want to point out some changes. And then from there, answer any questions that you may have. You have this team here and they know everything, right? At least about our process and are here to help you. So from there, if I could have the next slide, I want to introduce you to our team. I've been bragging about them. So first of all, we have Chikara Wheeler, and she really focuses on youth and our Flint women and girls. We have Damon Ross. He focuses on our neighborhood small grants work and our access to healthy food. Jennifer Farrington is a senior program officer with us. She's reached, I'm not even going to try, but past 15 years she's been here. And she really works on our scholarships and then our community fund out county grant making. Lydia Stars is a senior program officer working on our health grant making, and that includes our Turi committee as well as our Flint Kids work. Lynn Williams is our Director of Equity Engagement, helping us to really implement what we call our truth, racial healing, and transformation work, helping with healing circles, narrative change, moving forward projects from an equity perspective. We have Stephanie Whitledge. She's our grants admin, a grants administrator. She's the face that you probably know the best, or maybe had the conversation with on the phone to be directed and get some guidance. And then I'm rounding out the crew. They let me do that. Okay. So that's our team. You'll be hearing from each one of them going over specific sections, but wanted to show this amazing group of folks who are here to help you. So we are moving into a strategic planning process next year. At the same time, I don't envision that this vision will change that much, but I'm going to read it word from word because we spent a lot of time on picking these individual words and each one kind of means brings value, right? So the Community Foundation of Greater Flint partners and leads by influencing connecting generosity to Genesee County needs for good, forever, and for everyone. And so what we say that we connect generosity to community needs. We work with donors and folks who want to give to this amazing community, but then we work with all of you to make sure we can use that investment to make impactful programming to impact families and individuals in the community. And we really mean it is for good and it's forever because we believe in investing and long-term investment in endowments and with an equity lens to believe that everyone has the opportunity to thrive. So that is our mission. To give you a few facts, just some data points about us, we have about over 800 funds. And this is where I will say we differ from a private foundation. We have many donors that make up the money that we invest, and they create funds. So we have over 824 funds with different purposes, all different types of funds too. We have grown, if you can believe. This foundation started with $10 million in assets a little over 35 years ago. And now we are at 354 million in assets. So that's been incredible growth, and that we are proud of the trust that folks have in bringing their money to us. As I mentioned, over 35,000 donors. And I will tell you, a lot of that, as you can imagine, came from the water crisis. We had people giving us money from 14 different countries to across the United States. We had, Girl Scouts providing some of their dollars. So we have a lot of donors through the Flint water crisis. We also do our work with volunteers. We don't make our grant making decisions alone. We rely on community members to help us make those decisions. And so we have committees, grant making committees, that have a number of community volunteers, almost 300, I would say. That number might be a little bit low. So annually, this team makes about 10 million in grants. We actually topped out at 13 million last year, so we got a lot of money out the door. That's what we love to do. And then we have in total over our lifespan made over almost 200 million in grants since 1988, which was when we were founded. And talking a little bit about how we do our work, we talk about three roles, three legs of a stool. And really, it is growing the community's resources is one leg of the stool. You heard me talk about how we invest our money for the long term. So when someone comes to us and has funding that they want to bring in, we educate them, let them know what their options are. We have many different options, whether it's a fund or we can take, taxes. You can leave us in a will. We've actually had people donate silver coins. So the generosity comes in many shapes and forms. And what we do, though, is we invest that and use the growth of that for our grant making. And so that's how we know that the money will be there and only grow for long-term needs. The second focus, if I can get the next slide, is really community leadership. You heard me talk a little bit about we do more than grant making. We leverage our social capacity. This team has experience, lived history. Some from Flint, some have expertise in health, and what we try to do is we really bring that together for a catalyst for positive change. So we do that. Like I said, we have grants, but then this team is out there convening meetings. They're helping sift through and sort through and collect data so that we can make informed decisions and strategy. They work with all of you on one-on-one basis. So there is more we like to say beyond grant making, and that really we see ourselves in this team also in the space of community leadership. And then finally, grant making. That's what we're here today to talk about. We have priorities that we do list out. You just heard me walk through the mission. And then underneath that, we talk a lot about in our strategic plan, we do have specific goals for our grant making that are laid out in the strategic planning process and approved by the board. But we also try to be nimble, right? We want to be able to respond to community need when things shift, water crisis, COVID, you name it. We want to be able to adjust and meet needs as we can. And so we fund a broad range of projects to do that. We can do support programs. We support organizations with general operating. We can do some small grants. We have small grants that go to our neighborhoods that are under $500, all the way to some of the larger grants that we make on the Flint Kids Fund. I think maybe our largest grant was $500,000 at the time. We're not in that space anymore, but we really try to adjust to the needs in the community. So finally, the third focus, I think we went through, sorry, those were the three legs of the stools, but wanted to walk you through a little bit of, I mentioned that we had a great year at 13 million, just to show you where and how our grant making played out last year. You can see, as I mentioned, we have different types of grant making. We have donors who create funds and then provide recommendations. We have designated funds that a donor has designated to an organization, and those just go out a little bit more regularly. We have scholarships, as I mentioned, that Jen handles. And then we also have are competitive grants. And that's really what we're here to talk to you about today, is that competitive process. We always would love more money. You'll see that that's about 2.7 million of our grant making, and we keep working with our development department to grow that. A couple of highlights, though, just to let you know that really our average grant size is about $13,000. So we are a smaller funder, but we think we're pretty impactful. All of us have really learned how to use that small amount to leverage and instigate and catalyze change. So wanted to point that out, but and to let you know, it's competitive. We have almost 5 million that came in request last year, and we are only able to approve 3 million. So very competitive, but you all have great ideas, and we love to get those requests in to see how we can work with you to get them funded. Now, again, as I mentioned, we're kind of wrapping up this strategic planning process, moving into a new one next year. These are the current goals, not going to spend too much time on them. I can tell you that Flint neighborhoods will always be there, right? Our community and economic development and our neighborhood work and our community fund in the out county communities like Grand Blanc, Flushing, Fenton. Those are our priorities, and where we'll be having conversations is really about where we are now, moving in with new leadership. As we look at the data and what we've been doing grant making wise, and hearing from all of you, where do we need to focus now moving forward? That process will start next year. So currently, these are still our goals, and wanted to share them with you, but let you know that they will be changing moving forward. And then even though, we have those, as I mentioned, we have specific funds, and that leads us to some specific grant making programs. We have a specific grant making program that Chikara runs. That was its youth program, where we have youth involved in making those decisions. They help us make grant making decisions with some of that funding. Community impact is more of our broader money, where we are looking for those grants that we know we can, like I had mentioned, start something, instigate, make connections. That's what we focus on in our community impact grants, a little bit more flexible. We have a Flint Kids Fund that Lydia manages, really was stood up after the water crisis. It's a spend down fund. It was at 20 million, and now it's hovering at about 3, yet it has a 20-year span. So we're going to figure out how to continue to make grant making over that span that has been pointed out by that donor and that committee. We also have a Flint Women and Girls Fund. Chikara does that as well. Very great committee working on making sure that the programs that Flint Women and Girls need are funded and supported. I talked about our geographic affiliates. That's the right term you really want to focus on. I talked about community funds, but we call them our geographic affiliates, and that's Jen. Jen knows these communities. We believe in listening to communities, so she helps us do grant making in Clio, Davison, Fenton, Flushing, and Grand Blanc. We also have Health and Human Services, really focusing on health equity. And as I mentioned, that's Lydia is really our expert in that area. And then rounding out that, Damon, he hails from North Flint. I can't remember the exact street, but he'll remind us. He came back home and is now really investing and knows every nook and cranny out there and every street corner to help us figure out how to support neighborhoods and our residents in their ideas and what they want to see in their neighborhoods. So again, as I mentioned, we have this overarching strategic guidance, but then have these programs as well. All right. And then with that, I think the next slide. These are I would say, just kind of a continuation of that, in that we do have other funds and issue areas. Animal welfare is one that we work to continue to support the efforts of our agencies that are helping with animals. We have arts and culture access in the city of Flint, poverty and basic needs we look at. We do have a Pride Fund that was established, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, where we're really trying to work more in that area and helping get services for the population. Still working on racial healing, equity, and social justice. That's really Lynn's working on some healing circles and supporting that work. We also were able to do a documentary about the St. John neighborhood in this space. And then finally, we do work on supporting community event sponsorships. We know you all have a lot of events, and we like to be in that space and support you. It really comes more from a marketing standpoint, but we will, give you guidance and help you figure out if your event is a fit. All right. And so from here, Lydia, I'm going to
Okay,
hand it back to you.
thank you. All right. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm going to share a bit about application due dates for the upcoming year. And I think the biggest transition that we're going to have from 2024 grant making to 2025 grant making is going to be the fact that we're only going to have application due dates that will fall in the winter, spring. In the past, we've had a couple grant programs that were open for applications at August 1 or September 1, but we will not have those planned this year. If there is some special funding that comes in, or if dollars remain, we will do a special due date, towards the end of the year. But for now, there's no plan to have end of summer due dates for grant making. So the big one is February 1st. This has been our typical first deadline for the last several years. You can apply for community impact, geographic affiliate funds, health and human services, and youth programs at the February 1 deadline. March 17th will be the next deadline, and this will be for Neighborhood Small Grants Program and Flint Kids Fund. Both of those grant programs have unique applications, so it's important to note that February 1, these are general grant application forms that you'll complete, and then for March 17th, those have unique applications. If you submit something at February 1 that is a fit for Flint Kids Fund, though, that you won't have to submit the same thing twice. So in the application, you'll be able to know what are the strongest alignments with our funding priorities in our grant program areas. And so if you talk about both being a fit for Flint Kids Fund and say youth programs, then we'll do the internal work to take those to both of those committees for review and review those in our process. So you don't have to duplicate multiple programs for different deadlines and different grant programs. We do all the internal work to move those around. And then April 1st will be the Flint Women and Girls Fund deadline, and that fund also has its own unique application. And it has a theory of change. It's all going to be posted on the website, so you'll be able to see some of the priorities for that fund. Those will be available on the website. The Flint Kids Fund will also have a request for proposal that will go out at the beginning of the new year. So you'll be able to see, what their strategic priority areas are and any changes to that grant making that will start in 2025. So what does a grant application and review process look like? So if you're coming to us for the first time, I would say the number one step, and even if you're not coming to us for the first time, if you know us well and we've done funding in the past, please do talk to a program officer. This is an opportunity for us to really understand what the funding needs are for the organization and the program. We can ask you questions, provide some guidance on ways to frame the request or key things that we think our committee members might want or need to know in a review process. And if you're not sure who is the right program officer to talk to about your need, please call the main office. Sarah will direct you to, she'll ask you a couple questions, of course, about kind of what is the project you're needing support for, and then she'll get you to the right person. There's also no wrong door with us. So whoever you reach out to, we'll make sure you're connecting with the right program officer and having the conversations with the right people. The next step will be that you'll need to receive login credentials for the online application system. The application does need to be submitted online. We do provide templates of the application form, so you can download them, work on them externally, and Word or a Google Doc or something like that. You can collaborate with other staff and partners to complete those, but you will need to copy and paste answers into the online form and submit it in the online grantee dashboard. Login credentials usually go to the president, executive director. Also sometimes a grant administration person will have login credentials. You'll reach out to the main office or email us and we'll be able to help you get set up with credentials for a login. If you're an organization that is using a fiscal sponsor or a fiduciary, the fiscal sponsor organization will need to be the one to log in and submit the application. So you'll have to work with them to get the information uploaded into the system. So once you've submitted, staff here internally will review the application. We'll do some due diligence work, just making sure that the program and the organization are eligible to receive funding. And then often it goes to a committee of volunteers, so community volunteers who review and support our grant making process to help us with decision making. We also might send it to donors that might have interest and be supporting projects and organizations that are aligned with the application you submitted. So we'll do some, I call it matchmaking work. We do like the matchmaking game here, figuring out what are the right fund fits and right donor fits, and we'll shop it around to all of those opportunities. And then the last thing is you'll receive a final funding decision. And usually it's been taking us about 60 to 90 days to get through to the final decision and to get those notices out. Each year, it seems we have a increase in requests submitted. I think between 2023 and 2024 at February 1, we had a 30% increase in applications submitted. So we are getting more applications in every year, which is kind of causing us to take more time to get through the review process. But feel free to reach out if you have questions. We'll be able to tell you where we are and where we stand. So advice for building a strong application. Answer the questions directly and concisely and really provide, ample information. So if you're going to submit funding for a youth program, tell us a bit about what's going to, happen in that program. What are some of the topics you're going to be covering with those youth? How often are you going to meet with them? Is it weekly, over 6 weeks? And are you going to have, 3 6-week sessions? Give us those kind of details so we can really, paint a picture for committee members around what the program will look like and what the experience of the individuals who participate will be like in that program. And be really specific about the need that you're wanting to address. Share with us what is the problem statement, and what are the things that you're trying to solve in community. Impact of partnerships, right? There's a question that'll ask you about key partners. Please do describe those that you'll be leveraging to actually implement the program. We do like to know about all of the, other nonprofits you might coordinate with in terms of you might make referrals out, but if there are critical partners to getting the work done, please describe what their critical role is in the implementation of the project. And then make sure your budget supports your narrative, right? So there is a budget template that you have to complete and upload into the online application system. Make sure those salary, line items match what you've described in terms of activity and outcomes in the application. And then these are not required, but letters of support from key partners are always helpful, right? It shows their commitment to the project. So you don't have to have those. They're not a required document, but they are helpful. And if you do need to submit them after the deadline, that's fine. So if it's a push to get the application submitted by deadline, don't worry about letters of support. You can provide those, after the fact because they're not required documents. They can be submitted after an application due date. So what is required? You'll have to complete that online form. This is a list of all of the different application forms we have. I mentioned some funds have unique applications, so you might need to use that unique application, but for the most part, general application form is a good way to go. You'll complete the budget form and upload that into the system. And then we also require an annual submission of your most recent financial statement. That could be an audit. It could be, we can access 990s, a third-party financial review statement, whatever it is that you're using to demonstrate to your board what your financial position might be, or just something that shows revenue and expenses, right? Money in, money out. Those types of documents, we're pretty flexible and we'll work with any size organization with various capacities around financial systems and be able to support you and hopefully getting those things in place. All right, I'm gonna hand it over to Stephanie now. She's gonna do a grant application demonstration and kind of help you do a walkthrough of the system.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to do a screen share here so I can walk you through the process. Um, so we actually have the ability that you can create your own login if you don't already have one through the system now. We can still assist you with that as needed as well. The first step, of course, is to go to our website, which is cfgf.org. And once you get to our homepage, whether you have a login already created or if you're a new user, either way, you're going to start by accessing the login button to get into our portal. If you already have a username and password, this is where you would enter it here. If it's something that we created for you, our naming protocol is typically your last name followed by your first initial. So I would be Whitledge S. If you created it yourself, it's most likely going to be your email. If you forgot your password, we do have a forgot password function here. I'm going to demonstrate creating a new user login for you, and you'll see too there is a security question and answer that you'll complete there, which is what you would use in the forgot password feature. Or you could always contact us, grants@cfgf.org, or call us if you need help getting your password reset or getting into the portal. Once you get in here, I'm going to create a demo name. If you already have a login created, it will let you know as well. Now it says, thank you for registering as a grants administrator. It's going to send me an email to complete the registration process. So I will just have to wait a moment for that email to come in. But what you'll receive is an email with a link that asks you to click the link to complete the process. I'm gonna give that just a few seconds here. This could take, usually it comes in pretty quickly, but do allow up to, I would say, 5 minutes for it to come in. And if you haven't received it in that time frame, make sure that you check your spam folder. It does sometimes come there. And if you still don't receive it, again, that's just to reach out to us, grants@cfgf.org, or call us at our main line, and we can assist you in completing that process. Okay, mine just came in here. I'm gonna actually open that real quick and let you see what that looks like. So you'll see I received registration for, and that should be your name. In this case, I use demo name, and a link that you can click on, which will open right back into your browser for completion of the registration. So here is where you will set your password. You will confirm the password. Enter in your date of birth. So again, the reason that we ask these questions is so that you can reset your own password if needed and verify who you are. All of these are going to be required fields as well. If you try to submit before you complete everything, it will let you know that you missed a step. Now in this case, it's letting me know that my user already exists. Actually, the next step is going to be to register your organization once you're logged in. If you have already registered, please use the grantee organization search. Sorry about that. Now it's going to have me log back in. Okay, and so in this case, I'm actually already linked to an organization. I'll have a video uploaded to show you how to link to your organization, but essentially there is a search function there where you can search for your organization to see if it's already in the system. We do have, if you've ever worked with us before, your organization is already in the system and you can request access to that. If you are a new to us organization, then you'll complete a brief profile and it will notify us that a new organization has been created. Again, if you have any questions on that process, do feel free to reach out to us. But until your user is connected to an organization, that's one of the most common questions we see is I signed up for a username and password and I still can't apply for a grant. You do have to be connected to the organization because your application is really on behalf of the organization and not as an individual. We occasionally have somebody who is associated with more than one organization. So when you get to once you log in, you'll have the grant seekers page. Don't be alarmed if it's telling you to log in. Just click on grantee dashboard. And if you are logged in, you will have access here. There's a drop down here. So if I was attached to more than one organization, this is where I would toggle between those organizations. In this case, I only have access to one. And you will want to review your snapshot as well as your organization profile information. We recommend doing this every time just to make sure that everything is up to date. So in order to edit my snapshot, I will click this button here. And this is where you can enter in information about your organization. This will also save you time by pulling the organization overview and some of these pieces of information right into your application. So once you do it one time, make sure it stays up to date, and then that organization overview will carry into all your subsequent applications. I'm going to put in organization overview demo so that you can see where it gets pulled into the application. Be sure that you save for each section and that you hit submit when you're all set. If you don't do that last step, they won't save. And then you can view your snapshot. We're going to go back to the grantee dashboard here and review the organization profile information. This piece you will not be able to update on your end so that we make sure that we're notified if there's any change in contact or address. So if you do need to update this, you will need to either call us or you can email us at grants@cftf.org. Then you have these tabs here where you can double check for if there's multiple addresses listed or if there's multiple communication, phone numbers, emails listed. Check and see what's on here and make sure that it's up to date. We do a lot of our communications by email, so making sure that that is up to date and that you're checking your spam folder is definitely important. Okay, the next step here is I'm going to apply for a grant. I actually just had an email come in letting me know that I updated the snapshot, so that's something you'll receive as well, confirming that there's been a change. So when you get to the apply for a grant page, it reminds you to check out that snapshot on the grantee dashboard and make sure that's up to date. Right now, it's letting you know that it's closed. I had to reopen it for the demonstration purposes today. And of course, we try to keep reminding our contact information all along the way because we do want you to reach out should you have any questions. Just to show you, I do have the Flint Women and Girls program still closed. So if you try to apply for a closed application, this is the error message that you'll receive. Either your organization is not eligible or the grant application is closed. And it links to our page where you can see our grant application cycle so you know when the next due date is. I'm going to demonstrate the CFGF general application today, as this is the one that most people will be completing. The Flint Women and Girls Program does have a couple of different questions related to the theory of change, but it's largely the same application. The Flint Kids Fund, same thing. It is very, very similar. You'll see the most differences in our neighborhood small grant program. And the Neighborhood Small Grants Program, or NSGP, is the one application that we are still accepting the paper forms as well. But we did want to provide this online option. So today, again, I'm going to be demonstrating the general application. Okay, first step is to complete the project name, and that is what will initiate your application. And at that point, it creates an application ID number. Be sure to read through this in case you have any compatibility issues. We do recommend the latest version of the browser if possible. Be sure to, in each page, you will be hitting save and go next or save and go back to save your progress. If you have an application in process and you want to go back to it, this is one of the questions I see most often. You'll be navigating to application history. And so you can see I had created a previous demo that I had deleted, and this is the one that I just started today. So that is why you see the ID number there. In order to go back into it, I can click on the number here to edit this application. After you've submitted, all your previous applications can be found here, but you may have to change this range. By default, it only shows things that were submitted in the last 30 days. If you want to see from the beginning of time all your applications, you can select before today's date. And if I had applications that were anywhere in years past, they should show up here. In this case, I'm going to go back to resume this application I just started. As Lydia mentioned, we do strongly recommend that you download a blank copy of the application questions. There is a timeout feature in the application so that if you are typing directly into it and taking a long time to, write out your eloquent answers, you could get timed out of the system and lose your saved, anything that was not saved. So that's why we recommend putting it in a separate application using either Word or Google Docs or whatever your preferred software is to save your progress. So we have the opportunity to preview that blank copy here as well as download the budget. You'll notice at the bottom there is no submit button, and it will only appear once everything has been completed. So that's your key to know. If everything has been completed, it won't let you submit until it is. So we are going to jump into section 1, application overview. You will put what the total program costs. So this is not the request amount that you are asking us for, but the amount of money that it takes from this program, your start date of your program, and that is the program of which you're applying for. And then amount requested is the number that you are actually asking CFGF for. So here is our save and resume later button. If we wanted to leave where we are, but save the progress, at any point you can preview your PDF. Back will navigate you to the previous section. In this case, we're going to continue to save and go next. So this is where I entered into the snapshot where you can summarize your organization, and it's going to pull into your application. This asks if there's any significant organizational changes in the past year. So if you've moved locations, if your leadership has changed, if your board has changed, if you've had a lot of new staff come on, this is where you can detail that, or you can simply let us know that there's not been any significant change. The next question here for project information, you will be selecting the top 2 grant programs or strategic priorities that are best aligned. So this will allow a multi-select option. There is an other option if you don't feel that it fits with anything here. In this case, we're going to say access to healthy food and poverty and basic needs support. But you will go through to whatever best aligns with your program. So you hit save. Briefly describe how your project aligns with the strategic priorities above. So the 2 things that you selected here, let us know how you believe that they are a fit. Did your organization receive funding from CFGF for this project in the past year? This is a drop down. If you select yes, you will receive an additional question to describe the project process progress to date. And let us know what's going on with that. If there's been any changes to the project in the upcoming year, let us know. If you select no, those questions will not appear. How would you describe the project in 1 sentence? So this can be something very brief to say, if I got funding, what are we using it for? And this could be to feed low income residents on the north side of Flint. So just for an example, something very short that says, what are we doing with the funding should we be awarded? Okay, I'm going to save and continue on. What are the goals and activities for your project? So this is where you'll go into more details of how you plan to accomplish the goals of your project. What is your organization's experience in working with this type of project, and who will be responsible for the oversight and why? So just give us some information on if it's a brand new project, that's absolutely okay too. Just let us know who's involved and what kind of experience they have that might be helpful for putting on this project. Save and continue. Next, we have the geographic areas served by the project. This is another multi-select. You can select as many as apply, but if it is Genesee County-wide, all you need to select is that option there. And then we do have another option in case you are serving outside of the county. I don't recommend using the select all feature, although that is there because it is a multi-select question. Make sure you hit save, and now that's populated there. Next question is how many people will be served by your project, and we completely understand that it is unlikely that you are going to have an exact count of how many people will be served. So just give us your best estimate, or if it's a project that you've done before, you can let us know how many were served the previous time. We understand that there are underserved and or marginalized populations in our community. Will your project address issues or needs of underserved or marginalized populations? Select all that apply. So in this case, you could select other if none of these are your target audience. But if you do think that you are going to be working with certain groups, you can select as many as you think apply. Save. So here it will only tell me how many values I selected, but if you preview the PDF, it will actually list all of the selections out for you. And that's what we'll see at our end as well. Please describe how your project will intentionally address the disparities, issues, or needs of the underserved and or marginalized populations you've identified. So basically explain back to how you're going to run the project, but also how you are going to target what you're doing to the populations that you've identified. How are you going to reach those that you've tried to serve? So what, next question goes into what is your strategic outreach to reach the underserved or marginalized populations you've identified? So not just I'm running the project and these are the people that are going to be served, but how are you planning to reach them? Have you involved the most impacted populations in the development of this project? So ideally, that's always best practice, nothing about us without us. We want input from those you are serving. In some cases, you may not be able to do that, but if you are, we want to know about it. Save and go next. Another best practice is to partner or collaborate with other organizations or individuals in the community. So if you have partners or collaborative relationships already identified, we would love to know who you're partnering with and how you're planning to partner. If you have a letter of support, we encourage those as well, or an MOU of your partnership. We have an opportunity to attach those to the application as well. It's not mandatory, but if you do have those partnerships identified, we love to see what the agreement looks like or how you plan to work together. You'll notice I'm putting an X in each one so that it will show it as completed, because if I left them blank, it will not let me finish the application. So I'm going to show you what that looks like as well. What are your plans for evaluation, including how success will be defined and measured? So what does success look like for this project? And how do you know if you made a successful project? Explain whether and how community foundation funds will be used to leverage additional dollars. So in some cases, it may be a small project and you won't need any funds beyond what you're requesting from us. But in a lot of cases, especially as Sue indicated that, we tend to be a smaller grant size than some of the other funders. So we want to know how funding from us may help you access or meet your total goal by using our funds to match with additional dollars that you may be seeking. If your project is funded by CFCS, what are your plans to continue this project at the end of the grant period? Sometimes it may be just a one-time project, or you may say, I'm going to evaluate and see if it's worth doing again, or maybe this is something that you are always doing. So once our funding ends, what happens next? We want to make clear that as was stated earlier, we are a competitive funder. So unfortunately, we typically don't make multi-year commitments. And if you are planning to continue on, we want to see what that looks like. Are you planning to grow the funding? Are you planning to apply with us again? That's absolutely fine as well. We just know that we cannot guarantee our funding from year to year. If your project move forward with a partial grant, CFCS, so we want you to ask for the total amount that you need from us. Don't be shy about asking for what you need, but also know that if we have a request size that we can't meet, but we can award a partial grant, a lot of times that's a possibility as well. And we want to know what might change. If your full grant request is not met, are you able to move forward, or is this an all or nothing? You're our only funder, and if we don't get our full funding amount, the project will not be able to continue. That helps us know if we're able to make a partial award, if it's going to still be impactful. We added this statement in the last year just to avoid confusion about that submit button. I'm about to show you on the next page, you'll see green checks all the way down, and naturally that may indicate that I've completed everything, I'm done, but for us, it is not submitted until you hit the actual submit button. So we ask that you check this box just to make sure that you understand that, so that we don't have any confusion about what's been submitted or not submitted. So as I mentioned, here's all your green checks, but you'll notice I still don't have a submit button. The one thing that is mandatory for every single application is a budget. Letters of support, again, are encouraged if you have them. Organizational financials are typically going to be required for every organization. But if you've already applied with us for the year, then and you've given us your most recent one, we still have that on file, so you don't need to submit a new one. But we do want to make sure that we have what your most recent financial document is. And then we also have an opportunity to attach additional information. So if you have anything that's not covered in these other options that you want to share with us, we absolutely want to give you the opportunity to do that as well. In this case, I'm going to go into the project budget and attach the file. Please submit a project budget showing expenses and revenue, both confirmed and pending. We do have our budget template that you can go off of, but if you have a budget already created in a different format, that's absolutely fine. We just want to make sure that we see both the expenses and revenue, and we want to know what your revenue sources are other than the request for CFCF as well. So this is where we will select our file. Where you hit the upload button at the bottom. If you have multiple files, this is where you could add multiple at a time. You want to make sure that the file name populates here. This is where you can click and open it again. If you want to double check what you've uploaded, you can also remove it if you need to change it out to something different. Once you do have something here, it will also note requirement is complete. And now I can go back to my application. And now I have my big red submit button. Will take me to the next page. So you actually have one last step here where you do have to put in the name of your executive director and your board chair that has signed off on the request, and the applicant signature. Again, we're just typing names here as digital signatures, but the applicant signature is going to be the person who's completing the application on behalf of the organization. And you will put in today's date, and once more, the big red submit button. If it takes a moment like it is right now, you do want to make sure it goes through before you navigate to any other website. Now it lets me know application is submitted, and you'll also receive an email confirming the submission. Once again, if you need to go back to an application in process, or now that it's submitted, I can see the status by going to the application history. In this case, it says received. There are other application statuses you may see, such as staff review, committee review, review complete, approved, declined, and we will reach out to you typically via email, whether it is approved or declined. We'll make sure you receive a notification, but sometimes you can stay a little ahead on the status just by checking here and seeing where you are in the process. Going to send it back to Lydia to start the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for attending, everyone. I hope this information has been useful thus far. We wanted to drill down a little bit on the budget form because there have been some slight changes. Those of you who are familiar with it, you'll notice that it's been streamlined a little bit. We've broken it down into expenses, which is what is it going to cost you to execute your programming, and then revenue, what support do you have for that programming? As part of the application, obviously, like we just stated, you're going to have to complete this. We have general categories listed like salaries and supplies, but if you need to edit or modify this to change what relevant expenses there are for your program, you're able to do that as well. What's most important though is we'd like to know how the community foundation dollars will be used. You'll see in this example, the total project expenses are $19,000. But in the column for amount requested from community foundation, it's $1,000, which matches the request for supplies. So again, in this example, $19,000 is the total project expense, but what's being requested is $1,000 to support those supplies there. In the next slide, revenue, again, this is what is going to, what you're leveraging to support your programming. So all of the revenue for the project, including what you're requesting from Community Foundation, and then specifically whether that funding has been confirmed or if it's pending. One thing that strengthens an application is multiple funding sources, so stacking support from different areas, and we strongly encourage applicants to seek funding from a wide variety of sources. And again, you can personalize your budget to fit what's relevant for your program needs. The requirements for your grant award. Again, if you get funded, there's several requirements you need to be aware of. And the first that you're going to encounter is the grant agreement. This is a bit of a change. Starting December 1st, anyone who receives a grant award, no matter what the dollar amount, will be required to complete a grant agreement and sign that grant agreement. So the signed grant agreement outlines the purpose of funding, the grant conditions, the expectations for communication, the due dates for reporting requirements. The contact information for your program officer is included if you have any questions or if there are any changes you need to make throughout the timeline of your project. Organizations, again, are required to sign and return the agreement before your payment can be authorized. We have an EFT authorization form, so you can do it the old school way and come pick up the check, or you can use the electronic fund transfer, which is just basically a direct deposit of your award. You're going to want to communicate, your grant award, and you'll do that through a press release. There are two purposes. It helps publicize the work that you're doing, and then it also helps the community better understand the commitment and the relationship that the Community Foundation has with some of our local organizations in improving our region. A sample press release is included in that grant agreement that you sign and return. So some of the heavy lifting is already done. You can just plug and play with that sample press release. If you need to use the logo, you're going to contact Alex Dawson, who's the Associate Vice President of Marketing and Communications. Her information is listed there on the screen, and then you can also reference our website. Your final reports are typically due 30 days following the end of your grant cycle. So if your grant period ends October 31st, 2025, then 30 days from that ending date would be November 30, 2025. Again, we have a template available. It's going to ask you to provide a narrative and financial reporting of those grant refunds that you received. So how did you use what you received? And if you have a multi-year request, sometimes our grant periods are longer than 1 year. That may require an interim or a midpoint report also. I think I'm passing this to Shakara.
Yep. Thank you, Damon. So we wanted to give you all a heads up. If you are awarded in 2025, you will receive an optional demographics worksheet, which is this, and it can be a useful template to see your organization how you're serving the community. It's a great data analysis. And the final report form will be updated for 2025, and it will include this. Next slide. If site visits, if you if it's not requested, but you like to schedule a site visit with the Community Foundation of Greater Flint, please contact your program officer. We are always happy to see your work in action. So especially me, I like to do it. I like to be out in the streets and see what you all are doing. And it's always fun to see, especially getting into the grounds and the weeds of it all. So thank you. I'm gonna pass it off to Sue.
I had to have the team unmute me. That's something they don't often like to do. I'm teasing. So if we have grant related questions, this is your contact information. Please also put your question and answers in the chat. Also want to give a shout out to our program officer, Jen Farrington, senior program officer who you most know. I went right over her slides and did not give her a chance to speak, but she's amazing help as well. For these grant related questions, you'll see these are your contact points. We do have one information point that we are sad to share that Stephanie Whitledge is leaving the Community Foundation of Greater Flint for another opportunity to address some family issues and support her family, and also has, you know, her talents were hard to keep here, to be real honest. She's been an amazing part of our team. But know that we have put this in place for us in the interim and through the transition to make sure that we still can get your questions, reach out to your program officers. These are the general phone numbers and emails. So make sure we are here for you and will be available for you. Just a little bit more, you know, might take a little bit of our time for you to track us down without Stephanie. But with that, let's start with our questions and answers. And team, if I missed anything that I was supposed to cover, please just cover it. Jump right on in. You all did a great job. Thank you. And thank you all again for attending. I think we have one question in the chat that I see. Do you want me to go through them? You want me to keep going? All right. If there's a new organization and has not received tax exempt status yet, are we still eligible for funding? Stephanie, I'm going to hand that over to you since we can still.
Sure. For most of our grant making programs, you do have to have a nonprofit 501c3 status or other tax exempt status. So we also allow churches, schools, government entities are all eligible to apply. It's all about that tax exempt federal status level. Some exceptions do exist, such as in the Neighborhood Small Grants Program. You are allowed to apply for a small grant there. But it does limit the amount of funding you can have. But we also encourage community partners that are interested in getting their 501c3 to partner up with a fiduciary. So if you have a partner that does have that tax exempt status that is mission aligned and willing to apply on your behalf, we are absolutely open to funding entities in that way as well.
Thank you. Do it. Anyone else? Any other questions? Anyone want to come off mute and ask their question? That's as well. That's an option. All right, here's one. Thanks, Latrell. Is the portal. It is not portable, sorry. Is the portal available prior to 2/1/25 submission? Jen and Stephanie, I forget, when did we plan to open it earlier? I'm just not remembered that exact date.
Yep, I'll go ahead with that one. So November 1 was the planned date, but because we are so close to that and I had to open it anyway to do a demo, it's actually open as of today. So if anyone wants to go in and check it out as soon as today, you are welcome to do that. My only caution is that if you decide to submit prior to the due date, we do not start reviewing applications until the due date.
Leora, do you mind just asking your question?
Yes, under the answer questions directly and concisely, you state, excuse me, do you coordinate with other nonprofits? Excuse me. And how do you partner? What is the difference?
To answer that question, since that was my slide. So in terms of coordination, we want to know if there are other organizations and community who might be offering similar services or programs like yours. Do you coordinate with them to ensure that you're both not trying to address the same neighborhood at the same time in the community? Or perhaps you work with other nonprofits and coordinate with them around providing additional resources and services. The partnership is there, but it's a little bit different in terms of how you're each delivering things that support residents, but maybe are not part of your program specifically, right? It's not going to be part of how you implement your service. Whereas some partnerships are much more strategic. So I might need an organization to provide a specific service to the people I'm serving in my program. I might have a contract with Mothers of Joy to come in and do some particular sessions with, the people who are residing in my, in the shelter of Flint or something like that. I think that's a good example of how there's a real strategic partnership and leveraging of institutional expertise across organizations versus making referrals and ensuring that you're all working together to serve residents in the best and most effective way.
Okay.
That up, great, okay. Any other questions? Can
Oh, I
definitely
have one more.
go for it.
Where it states where the executive director, if you don't have an executive director, can you leave that blank on the application, or do you need to put someone in there?
I'm gonna have Stephanie answer that so I can get all the questions to her that I can before she leaves. No, go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh, that's a good question. Most organizations do have some sort of executive director. If it's not an ED specifically, maybe it's a president or even if it's any sort of lead of the organization. I would suppose if maybe you don't have any staff and just the board, you can put NA there. But I would say either an ED or a board, one of those two is going to be required.
Okay.
And Jen, can I just, because I did your slides, would you mind just the same, because I feel bad, just the same thing? It could be a board chair or your thoughts on what you've seen.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay. All right. Did we answer everything? All right, well, we are here. Thank you again for all that you do, for joining this session. Look forward to working with you on the ideas that you have for projects and programs and working with you to meet community need. Thank you very much.